Hello everyone, welcome to the series of lectures on the course Calculus and Numerical Methods. This is part 5 of the second chapter, Sequences and their Convergence. In this lecture, we will be looking at algebra of convergent sequences. So before getting into the algebra of convergent sequences, if I give you any two sequences, first we will look at how to generate more sequences from those two sequences. Okay, or even one sequence, how you can get another sequence from the given sequence. So supposing I have two sequences with me, let's say x1 xn and yn. Okay, so supposing these are two sequences, and supposing there is some real number alpha. Now what you can do is you can define from these two sequences, using these two sequences, you can define one more sequence. I'll name it Zn, and you can define that to be the sum of these two sequences xn plus yn, and that is defined as xn plus yn for each n. Okay, so how this is defined now? Uh, the terms of the sequence xn are of the form x1, x2, x3 and so on, and the terms of the sequence yn are y1, y2, y3 and so on. So when I'm adding these two sequences, I will be adding their corresponding terms. That means the first term x1 will be added to the first term y1. In this term now, x1 plus y1 will be the first term of the addition of these two sequences. Okay. Similarly, x2 plus y2, x3 plus y3 and so on. So what we have done is, given two sequences xn and yn, I have obtained one more sequence from these two sequences. Okay. And another way of doing this would be you subtract both the sequences. So you'll have, instead of plus, you'll have minus, and you will be subtracting the corresponding elements in this case. Okay, so that is one. Another way of doing this is you can multiply these two sequences. So I took Zn here, let me take some other notation, Pnc, and you define Pn to be product of these two sequences, and that is defined to be the product of the corresponding terms, and it is denoted by the sequence x and yn. And this is, the elements here will be the product of the corresponding terms of the sequences xn and yn. So that will be x1 into y1, x2 into y2, x3 into y3 and so on. Okay, so this way you can generate one more sequence from the given two sequences. All right. Now one more way is, if I take any sequence xn and if I take a real number alpha, then I can talk about alpha times xn, this one more sequence. Okay, I can say that it is of this form, alpha xn, or I can give another notation to it as well. So let me call it let's say qn, and that you define as alpha xn. So what you will be doing here, you will be multiplying alpha to each and every element of the sequence xn. Okay, so this will be alpha x1, alpha x2, alpha x3 and so on. So what you are doing here is you are multiplying the scalar alpha to each and every element of the sequence xn, and this is how you get a new sequence which is alpha x, right? One more thing that I can do is, if I know that all the terms xn are non-zero, where n is a natural number, then I can talk about the sequence 1 by xn. I can call it some let's say pqrn, and this sequence will have reciprocals of all the terms of the sequence xn. Okay, so this you can talk about this sequence only if each and every term of the sequence xn is non-zero, because the reciprocal should be well defined. Okay, and this is 1 by x1, 1 by x2, 1 by x3, and so on. Right. Similarly, you can also talk about the sequence, fifth one, say xn by yn. Here it is necessary that all the terms of the yn are non-zero, and the corresponding terms of this sequence will be x1 by y1, x2 by y2, and so on, x3 by y3, and you keep on going this way. So these are some ways, using which you can generate more and more sequences from the given two sequences. Now let me take examples of some sequences that we have already seen, and we will try to apply this idea to those two sequences. All right. So let's take xn equal to, for example, let's say this is 1 by n for each natural number n, and let's take yn to be, let's say, the constant sequence 2 for all n. Okay, then how will the sequence xn plus yn look like? So the sequence xn plus yn would be this sequence 1 by n plus 2, right? And how will the elements of this be? When n equal to 1, that will be 3. When n is equal to 2, it will be 2 plus half, right? That's half plus 2. When n equal to 2, it will be half plus 2. When n is equal to 3, it will be 1 by 3 plus 2, 1 by 4 plus 2, 1 by 5 plus 2, and this keeps on. So this is the new sequence that I've obtained by adding these two sequences, right? Then what we did was we multiplied two sequences. So let me multiply now. This sequence xn yn will be 2 into 1 by n, and that will be 2 by n. And how will this sequence look like? When n is equal to 1, this will be, I can write it here. When n is equal to 1, it will be 2. When n is equal to 1, that's, when n is equal to 2, it will be 2 by 2, that's 1. When n is equal to 3, it will be 2 by 3, then 2 by 4, 2 by 5, 2 by 6, and so on. Right? So this is how the product of two sequences are defined. Each corresponding terms you multiply. Right? And one more could be you multiply some scalar. Let's say I'll pick up 5 xn. Supposing my alpha is 5, so that will be 5 by n. And how will this sequence look like? 5 by 1, 5 by 2, 5 by 3, 5 by 4, 5 by 5, that will be 1, then 5 by 6, 5 by 7, 5 by 8, this keeps on going. So we have multiplied a scalar to a sequence and we have obtained a new sequence, that is 5 by n, right? Then reciprocal of a sequence. If you look at the sequence yn, I'll pick up yn in this case, then you can talk about yn, and that will be the constant sequence half. So half, comma half, comma half, comma half, that's a constant sequence half, right? So we have obtained one more sequence from the given sequence. And then you can divide these two sequences also. Okay, that I'll leave for you all. What will be xn by y? Okay, you all can write some terms of this sequence and see how it looks. Okay, so this I will leave as an exercise. So this is how you can generate more sequences from given sequences. Now, one question to think here is, if this sequence xn converges to some point a, let's say the sequence xn converges to a and the sequence yn converges to b, let's say, then where you expect the sequence xn plus yn to converge? where should the sequence xn plus yn converge if xn is converging to A and yn is converging to B? This is one thing. Second thing, where will the product of these two sequences converge, x and y? If xn is converging to A and yn is converging to B, where will their product converge? Third thing is, if xn is converging to A, where will the sequence alpha xn converge, where alpha is a real number? Right? Next, if xn is converging to A, where will the sequence 1 by xn converge? And if xn is converging to A and yn is converging to B, where will the sequence xn by yn converge? So all these questions now we have to answer. Okay. So that is what we are going to do now. This is called algebra of convergent sequences. If I have two sequences, let xn and yn be two real sequences such that xn converges to the point x and yn converges to the point y. Then their sum xn plus yn, this sequence xn plus yn will converge to the sum of their limits, that is x plus y. This is the first thing. If xn is converging to x, then if you multiply alpha to this sequence xn, this alpha xn sequence will converge to alpha times x. So that same constant that you are multiplying to the sequence will be multiplied to the limit of xn, and this alpha x will be the limit of the sequence alpha xn. Right? For any real number alpha it will work. Positive, negative, 0, any real number you pick up, this is going to work. Okay? Then if xn is converging to x and yn is converging to y, then the product x and yn will converge to the product of their limits, that is x into y. Right? And the fourth one says, if xn is converging to the point x, where x is non-zero and xn's are non-zero, then the reciprocal, that is 1 by xn, this sequence will converge to the reciprocal of the limit of the sequence xn, that is 1 by x. Okay, so this is what we have to establish now. We will assume that xn converges to x and yn converges to y, and these four properties we will prove. Alright, so let's look at the first one. We are given that xn converges to x and yn converges to y, right? So the proof goes this way. The first one, we are given that xn converges to x, yn converges to y, and we have to prove that xn plus yn converges to x plus y. So we have to estimate this quantity xn plus yn minus x plus y, and we have to find a natural number such, we have to find a stage such that no matter what epsilon is given to you, you are able to find a stage after which this difference is less than that epsilon, right? So that's what we have to show. So I will start with some epsilon arbitrary. Supposing some epsilon positive is given to you, any epsilon. So we have to estimate, our claim is the sequence xn plus yn converges to the point x plus y. Right? So we will estimate their difference now. So you consider this term xn plus yn minus x plus y. If you reshuffle the terms, then you can write this as xn minus x plus yn minus y, right? And if you take this as a and if you take this part as b, it is of the form mod a plus b. So triangle inequality will come into picture here, and by applying triangle inequality, this will be less than or equal to modulus of a, that is modulus of xn minus not a, that's x plus modulus of b, that is yn minus y, right? So I will call this expression, let's say some capital A. So we have this quantity, the difference of these two is less than or equal to this term. Now, can I get an estimate of xn minus x somehow and yn minus y? How will I get this? We are given that xn converges to x and yn converges to y, right? So since xn converges to x, there exists a natural number n1 such that for all n bigger than or equal to this n1, xn minus x will be less than epsilon, because xn converges to x, right? Similarly, since yn converges to y, again I can apply the definition. There will exist one more natural number, I will call it n2, such that for all n bigger than or equal to this n2, yn minus y is less than epsilon. Now I am not very sure what actually I need here. That I will come to know at the end stage. Okay, so I will leave these two numbers here with a red box, because I am not sure whether actually epsilon I need or I need to modify it a bit, right? So let's keep that on hold for now. So I got an estimate for xn minus x, that's here, and yn minus y, right? Now let me call this as C, let's say B. I will call this as B, and I will call this statement as C. Now if you see the statement B, that works for all the natural numbers which are bigger than or equal to n1. It works for all these numbers. And if you look at C, that works for all natural numbers which are bigger than or equal to n2. That is these numbers. Now I want one natural number such that both the conditions will work for natural numbers bigger than that natural number. Right? So we have come across such situations before, and we have seen that we pick up the maximum of these two. Here, n2 is the maximum in this picture. Okay. So what I will do, I will choose, let's say n to be maximum of n1 and n2. Okay. So for this capital N now, which is maximum of both these natural numbers, B as well as C will work, right? Therefore, mod xn minus x will be less than epsilon. Mod yn minus y is also less than epsilon, and this works for all natural numbers greater than or equal to this capital A. Both these conditions will work for all small n bigger than or equal to capital. Again, I am not sure about these epsilons here. I might have to modify them a bit. Okay. So this I will substitute in A now. Let's see what I get if I put this in A. So let's substitute this in A. That will give me, substituting in A. In A, what I have, we started with this estimate xn plus yn minus x plus y, and that we saw is less than or equal to here, right on top, xn minus x plus yn minus y, right? And each of these two are less than epsilon, both of them, for all n bigger than or equal to capital N. So this is strictly less than epsilon plus epsilon for all n bigger than or equal to this capital N, right? But what is their sum now? That's 2 epsilon, epsilon by epsilon plus epsilon, that's 2 epsilon. Is there any way of getting epsilon at the end? I want the sum of both these to be epsilon, not 2 epsilon. So what I can do here? I can divide by 2 and divide by 2. That means I need epsilon by 2 and epsilon by 2 at both these places. So I will change this to epsilon by 2, epsilon by 2. There is one more place, that's here. Yes. Now the things are looking fine. So mod xn minus x is less than epsilon by 2. Mod yn minus y is less than epsilon by 2. So those we are using here. And now epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2 is epsilon for all n bigger than or equal to capital N. Right? So what we have done here now, we have made this modification. The definition of convergence, that is xn converges to x, what it says, given any epsilon positive, no matter what that is, I can find a natural number n1 such that mod xn minus x will be less than that positive number. So you pick that positive number to be epsilon by 2. Because epsilon was positive here, epsilon by 2 is also positive, right? So it makes sense. So if you choose epsilon by 2 and epsilon by 2 here, finally you'll be ending up with epsilon, and that's what we wanted here, right? You can also keep this as 2 epsilon, it doesn't make a difference actually. Okay, but I wanted to present it the way I have given the definition. So I changed that to epsilon by 2 at both the places, and finally we have epsilon. So what have we done? Therefore, given epsilon positive, conclusion is, given epsilon positive, there exists a natural number capital N, and this capital N is the maximum of n1 and n2, such that for all n bigger than or equal to this capital N, xn plus yn minus x plus y, this difference is less than epsilon, right? So if you take this as your sequence an and this as the point A, then this sequence an converges to the point A by definition, and this implies the sequence xn plus yn converges to the point x plus y. Okay, so conclusion is, if xn converges to x and yn converges to y, then the new sequence xn plus yn will converge to x plus y, and that completes the proof of the first property, right? So the first one is done. Yes, this one is done. So we have to establish the second one now, that is regarding the scalar multiple alpha xn. So let's start with that. In the second one, our claim is, I'll start with an epsilon positive first. And our claim is, the sequence alpha xn converges to the point alpha x. Xn converges to x, that is already given to us. And now this is what I have to establish, right? We have to estimate the term alpha xn minus alpha x, right? Because I want to show that this sequence alpha xn converges to this point alpha into x. So first we start with that alpha xn minus alpha x. Let's see what we can get out of this. Now if you can see here, alpha is common, so I can take alpha common within the modulus. So this will look like alpha times xn minus x, right? And if you think of this alpha as a and this term as b, then it is of the form modulus of ab, and that is equal to modulus of a into modulus of b. So if I apply that property of absolute value function, then this is nothing but mod alpha into mod xn minus x. So we have to estimate this guy now. Is there any way of estimating this xn minus x? How can you estimate this? It is given to us that xn converges to x, right? So using that I can get an estimate for this quantity. So I will name this as something, let's say d. Let's call this d. And now let's estimate this. So since xn converges to x, what I can do, I can find a natural number, I'll call it n3, such that for all n bigger than or equal to this natural number n3, what is going to happen? The difference between xn minus x is going to be less than epsilon. Again here, I will leave this with a red box because I'm not sure whether I need alpha here or no. I will come to know later on what actually I have to take here. Okay, depending on the situation. So let's see. Now, if you substitute this part here, okay, so I'll substitute this in D. Let's see what we get. Substituting this in D, alpha xn minus alpha x, this was less than or this was in fact equal to mod alpha into mod xn minus x. And now this term is less than epsilon. So this will be strictly less than mod alpha into epsilon, because this xn minus x, this part is less than epsilon from here. This will work only for numbers n which are greater than or equal to n3. Yeah? Okay, so that condition is there. For all n bigger than or equal to n3, this is going to happen, definitely. Right? So finally, I'm not getting epsilon. If you see here, I'm getting epsilon into mod alpha. So I have to get rid of this mod alpha. If you want to cancel out this mod alpha, then you need a mod alpha in the denominator of epsilon. Right? Then only you will be able to cancel out this mod alpha and mod alpha. That means here I have to put upon epsilon here, then only I will get epsilon there, right? But then comes one more difficulty. What if alpha is 0? What if alpha is 0? If alpha is 0, then I cannot divide this epsilon by mod alpha because this will be 0, and hence epsilon by mod alpha will not be well defined. That means I cannot divide epsilon by mod alpha, right? If alpha is non-zero, then no issues. I can divide it by mod alpha. Okay. So what you can do, I will simply add 1 here. After adding 1, if you see, I have mod alpha plus 1 in the denominator, right? Can this be 0 anytime? Can the denominator be 0 now anytime? This will be 0 only if mod alpha turns out to be minus 1. Then only minus 1 plus 1 will cancel out and you'll end up with 0 there, right? But modulus of any real number is always bigger than or equal to 0. So there is no chance of this mod alpha being negative, and hence mod alpha plus 1 will be a non-zero number, right? So this is how we take care of the denominator. So that I will divide by this. Okay, but am I able to get rid of this now? This quantity, what you will do with this quantity? That is less than or equal to 1. Can you see that? Can you see that this is less than or equal to 1? See, mod alpha is strictly less than mod alpha plus 1. So if you transfer this quantity in the denominator here, you will have mod alpha upon mod alpha plus 1 is strictly less than 1, right? That means this will be strictly less than 1 times epsilon, and that's epsilon, and this will work for all n bigger than or equal to n3, right? So I managed to get epsilon here somehow. So what did we do? Given epsilon positive, we found a natural number n3 such that for all n bigger than or equal to n3, this alpha xn minus alpha x is less than epsilon. For all n bigger than or equal to n3, alpha xn minus alpha x, this quantity is strictly less than epsilon, right? That means by definition we have shown that the sequence alpha xn converges to the point alpha x. Okay, so this is how you show that if xn converges to x, then alpha xn has to converge to alpha into x. Okay, so this proves property number 2, that is this one here. Okay, so that proves this property, and these two properties are left now, which I will handle in the next lecture. Alright, so that's it for this lecture, and wait for the continuation of this lecture. And these are my references. Thank you.